Vampires, the undead, blood-drinking, sun-fearing predators of the night. They appear in most cultures around the globe, in various forms. In China, they were called the Jiangshi. In Scandinavia, they were called the Drager. In Romania, they were known as the Strigoi, and were the ones that Dracula was inspired by, which would further inspire the rise of the modern vampire as we know it, at least in the West, which makes me want to ask the question, what if vampires existed? How would this affect humanity and our history? This could be one of the ways it could go. Now, some of you may be saying this is scientifically impossible, or at the very least, very difficult. And you would be right. But this is just a thought experiment on how vampires would affect us and what would be the result. For fun. So bear with me here. Now, with that out of the way, we must discuss what kind of vampire is coming into the world. Vampires differ wildly in terms of power, form, and intelligence. Sometimes they are like zombies, like the Jiangshi, or beautiful yet dangerous, like the Babohan Sith, or similar to ghosts, like the Dragir, a name you might have heard of if you have played or seen Skyrim. Anyhow, those are only a small number of the types of vampires that exist throughout mythology, not counting the many that exist in fiction. So, which kind of vampire am I going to make real? Well, I feel like the most fitting would be the most well-known. The type that inspired Dracula. The Sugoi. The Sugoi are the native vampires from Romanian folklore, as mentioned earlier. Their powers range from superhuman strength and speed. They can shapeshift, are immortal, can astral project, and can possess invisibility. There are many different ways one can become a Sugoi, such as being born with an extra nipple or a tail, dying by suicide, die while being a sinful person, dying before baptism, or being born out of wedlock, just to name a few. There are even different kinds of Sugoi, such as living Sugoi, which are basically wizards and witches that can drink human blood to sustain themselves, and dead Sugoi, who are more like ghosts and haunt their family members, slowly killing them. So, now that we know what the Sugoi are now, we can see how Dracula fits into the mythology as some sort of undead living Sugoi. And with this information, and with knowledge of Dracula's abilities and weaknesses, this will form a new template for the Sugoi of this alternate world. So we can now finally move on to the alternate timeline. Oh, what would happen in this strange world? Well, for this scenario, it's late antiquity, in Transylvania, and the vampires, the Sugoi, begin to emerge. I chose late antiquity because, well, Sugoi comes from a Latin phrase, so I think it would be fitting that they would begin to emerge in this time period. I was originally planning the Stone Age, but I think this would provide a much more interesting scenario. Well, what do I think would happen in this new world? Well, it would be likely that the vampires would slowly take over the world, simply due to their powerful abilities that range from shape-shifting to telekinesis to control of animals, the ability to rapidly make more of themselves through transfusions and such, and also because of their simply superior strength and speed. It would make sense if they began to take over the world, since to them, humans are basically cattle. Now, I do say slowly, since humanity wouldn't fall all at once. There are many governments in this world, after all, that they would have to topple. and their powers would be weakened in the day. But I think in time, this would be made up for as Dampiers will become a thing. A Dampier is a half vampire. In stories and mythology, they are usually vampire hunters, but to me it would make more sense that vampires would seek to create these guys, since they more or less have the same powers as their vampiric fathers, if only weakened, but they don't have the weaknesses of, well, sunlight to deal with, and wouldn't be affected by other such means of dealing with vampires. So, I imagine in this world the vampires would slowly dominate through the use of their abilities and their armies of Dampiers to bring all nations and peoples to their knees. And when all is said and done, perhaps a king, a Dracula, will rise to rule over this new world of vampires and humans. Or, what I think is also quite likely, the vampires could fall into infighting, splitting the world into dozens of new undead kingdoms. Who knows? This is only one scenario, with one kind of vampire. What do you guys think would happen? Remember to like, share, and subscribe. See you guys next time.